Abertridwr, a place of where three waters meet. The Welsh name comes from the Cwm Cefalin and the Nant Elam water meeting to form the Nant of Aber. But apart from this village, this place has a rich coal deposit. The Windsor Colliery, a place where mining was brought to this village, and this documentary will look at the highs, the lows, the success and the disasters. In May 1839, the Great Western Colliery in Hopkinstown decided they wanted to branch out and open another colliery. They looked at a lot of land across South Wales, but they decided the place rich full of coal that they wanted to branch out to was in the Aber Valley, in either Singenes or Abertridwr. And it was very hard to get the land. They had to go to Lord Windsor, and it took a good couple of years for him to decide to lease out the land to the Great Western Colliery Company. And from there, they decided to start building the Windsor Colliery. The colliery's north upcast was beginning to be sunk in 1887, with the downcast being done just over 11 years later in 1898. And the colliery was a very, very deep one of the most deep ones in South Wales, deeper than Singenes. It was 664 yards to the pit bottom from the surface. And this colliery was very lucky as it was served by the Singenes branch of the Rumney Railway. Once the colliery was open, they had a small workforce of 151 people, 76 on the surface, 75 underground. And it would grow very quickly, the workforce. It would grow into thousands as the demand of Welsh coal in the early 1900s grew. Sunday the 1st of June 1902, 9 sinkers descended underground on a night shift. These 9 sinkers would be working on a platform which was above some water. And as they were working, something tragic would happen. The platform would collapse and all 9 men would be submerged underwater. The men fell 25 feet into water. Debris was everywhere and 3 men gripped onto the debris. They would survive while the rest would drown to their deaths. And this wasn't the only disaster that would happen at the Windsor Colliery. The other disaster would involve a haulier called Thomas Isaac. Thomas travelled underground for a shift on the 8th of May 1910 as normal. He was walking along a road with a horse and a train behind him full of coal. Little he knows that the roof would collapse onto him, bringing debris onto his head, onto the horse and onto the train. But Thomas's death would be more painful for him, as he wasn't killed by the impact of the debris. He would suffocate to death, making the pain he was in horrible, and he would be the final main fatality at the Windsor Colliery. By 1913, the Windsor Colliery had 1,649 men employed working underground and on the surface. And the Windsor Colliery decided to join the South Wales and Monmouth Coal Mines Association, which was run by the Insull family of Llandaff, Cardiff. They are quite an interesting family, the Insulls. They introduced Welsh coal to the London stock market, which it started thriving, family. And George Insull became the sole agent of Tiger Bay's coal trade, which was run by part of the Docks family. So the Insulls took Aber to another level of trade. With Windsor's coal now being shipped across the world, the colliery was profitable. And one company in Wales which were pretty interested in Windsor Colliery was the Powell Duffering Company. They went to the Great Western Company and put a bid in of 250,000, which was accepted, and they bought the colliery. That would be equivalent of 1.5 million in today's money, and that's how the Windsor Colliery was bought. But the Power Duffering Company had its own strategy of dealing with issues with miners. Members of the South Wales Miners' Federation were put on to day shifts. These were considered as agitators, and when these afternoon shifts would stop, they would fire these miners and re-employ only a few of them, and leaving 30 of them jobless, and hence to basically stop the chance of agitation and striking happen here at the Windsor Colliery. The company also decided to link the shafts up with the Universal Colliery, which was recently closed. The Universal Colliery in St Gennes became a ventilation facility for the Windsor Colliery.
I am speaking to you from the Cabinet Room at 10 Downing Street. This morning, the British ambassador in Berlin handed the German government a final note stating that unless we heard from them by 11 o'clock, that they were prepared at once to withdraw their troops from Poland, a state of war would exist between us. I have to tell you now that no such undertaking has been received, and that consequently this country is at war with Germany.
The Windsor Colliery, when World War II came around, went into full war production, and it did provide coal to the Royal Navy. But following the war, a lot of industries started getting privatised, such as gas, steel, and even water. But coal wasn't spared from this. So Windsor Colliery in 1947 fell under the National Coal Board, or the NCB, where it's commonly known as. 751 men worked underground, while 162 men worked on the surface upon nationalisation. Windsor Colliery was still very profitable upon this, but there was a colliery which was only producing 750 tonnes of coal a year, which was struggling. It was nearby, and that was the Nant-Garw Colliery. And the NCB had an approach to make it a show pit, and this would affect the Windsor Colliery's future. With the profitable Nant-Garw Colliery now being given show pit status, it was decided that the undergrounds, the Windsor and the Nant-Garw, will be linked to create bigger shafts and roadways. And by 1974, this was completed, and the amalgamation of Nant-Garw and Windsor was under full swing, and then the colliery became profitable due to Windsor's riches and Nant-Garw's riches being all together. The last tram of coal here at the Windsor Colliery surfaced in 1976, and that tram would be on, incidentally, the same day as the last coal train would leave the Aber Valley. The colliery would be dismantled, and that would be the last colliery in the Aber Valley. It would be a sad end to the history of Windsor, but the legacy still does live on. The Windsor site is now moving into houses, but the Nant-Garw Colliery was shut in 1986 following the miners' strike, the unsuccessful miners' strike. And a few legacies of the Windsor Colliery remain, which includes this wheel by here and other things such as memorials and the last tram of coal, which we'll see. And this would be the sad ending of the mining era here in Abertridwr. This brings the story of the Windsor Colliery to an end. And I am going to leave you with the names of the 6 miners that drowned on our day in 1902. Thank you for watching.